David, can I tell you something that sounds crazy? Most people don't have a money problem. They have a money thinking problem.
Wait, what does that even mean? Are you saying the way we think about money matters more than the amount of money we have?
Exactly. And that's the idea behind one of the most famous financial books in the world, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
So this book isn't just about making more money?
Not really. It's about understanding why some people build wealth while others stay stuck, even when they work just as hard.
All right, so where does the story actually begin?
So picture this. Robert is 9 years old, and there's this classmate having a birthday party at a beach house, and Robert and Mike don't get invited.
Ouch.
Yeah, and it's because everybody just kind of knew they were the poor kids.
That's rough for a 9-year-old to feel.
Totally. So he goes home and asks his dad, how do I become rich? And his dad, the school teacher, says something like, you need to learn how to make more money.
Which is not exactly a game plan.
Right. It's advice that sounds true, but doesn't actually tell you anything. So his dad, honestly, admits he doesn't really know and tells Robert and Mike to go ask Mike's father instead, the guy who's building businesses.
So even the poor dad basically says, go ask the guy who's better at this than me. That's actually kind of humble.
It is. And that's a nice detail people forget. The poor dad wasn't a bad guy. He just had a different relationship with money.
Okay, so they go talk to Mike's dad. What happens?
So Mike's dad says, sure, I'll teach you, but not by talking. You have to work for me. No lectures, no classroom.
I respect that, honestly. Some of us learn better by doing than by sitting in a room getting talked at.
Same. So the boys agree, and he offers them 10 cents an hour, which even back then was basically nothing, working Saturdays at a little grocery store for one of his employees, a woman named Mrs. Martin.
10 cents an hour? What are they even doing for that?
Dusting cans. Just literally taking canned goods off the shelf, dusting them with a little feather duster, and restacking them for 3 hours every single Saturday.
That sounds like actual punishment. No air conditioning either, right?
None. Doors wide open to the parking lot, so every time a car drove by, dust would just swirl right back into the store, undoing basically everything they'd just cleaned.
Oh, that's borderline cruel.
It's giving build character energy, honestly. And after about 3 weeks of this, Robert's done. He's like, I'm 9 years old, I'm working for practically nothing, I haven't even seen Mike's dad since day one, I quit.
Honestly fair.
Right, but here's the twist. Mike just smiles and says, my dad said you'd want to quit around now. He wants to meet with you.
Wait, so this was planned the whole time?
The whole time. It was basically a setup designed to trigger exactly the reaction Robert had.
That's kind of brilliant in a slightly evil way.
A little evil, yeah. So Robert goes to complain, and Rich Dad asks him one simple question. Is teaching the same thing as lecturing? And Robert says, yeah.
And Rich Dad says?
He says life is the best teacher there is. And most of the time, life doesn't talk to you. It just pushes you. Some people let life push them around. Some people push back at the wrong things, like their job or their boss. And only a few people actually learn from the push.
Oh, that line genuinely gave me chills a little.
Right? And that's basically lesson 1 of the whole book. The rich don't work for money. They work to understand how money works.
Okay, hold on. Before we go further into the money lessons, we've got some new listeners jumping in today. So let's actually say hi properly.
Oh, yes, good call. So if this is your first time here, hi, welcome. Genuinely so happy you found us.
This is Englishfb, and basically what we do here is pretty simple. We just talk. Like this, exactly like you're hearing right now. Real conversations, real topics, real English. The kind people actually use, not the kind that only shows up in textbooks.
And along the way, without it feeling like homework, you'll naturally pick up new words and expressions too.
So sit back and let the conversation carry you. If you enjoy it, subscribe and tell a friend. It genuinely helps us keep making these.
Okay, teamwork complete. Back to Robert Kiyosaki and his 10 cents an hour.
The saddest paycheck in podcast history.
So here's where it gets interesting. Rich Dad tells the boys he's going to stop paying them completely. 0. Nothing.
Wait, that seems like a downgrade, not an upgrade.
Right, that's exactly what Robert thinks too. He's like, I came here for a raise, and now you're telling me I work for free?
That's rough.
But it forces them to actually think, instead of just showing up and doing the same boring task. And eventually, Robert notices something. Mrs. Martin, the woman running the store, and a lot of the adults around town, they're working really hard for decades, just hoping for a pension and a 2-week vacation once a year.
and he realizes he doesn't want that life.
Exactly. So Rich Dad tests them. He offers a raise, 25 cents an hour, then $1, then $2, which back then was an enormous amount of money for a kid.
I would have caved immediately, not gonna lie. $2 an hour as a kid, I'd be buying the whole candy store.
Right, and that's exactly what Rich Dad is testing. He wants to see which part of them wins. The part that just wants comfort right now, or the part that can hold out for something bigger later.
That's a lot of pressure to put on a couple of 9-year-olds.
It really is, but honestly, I think that's kind of the point. He's showing them really young that almost everyone has this constant tug of war going on inside them between take the easy, comfortable thing right now and wait for the thing that actually changes your life.
And most adults never even notice that tug of war is happening.
Exactly. They just assume that's normal. That's just life. But the boys say no every time because they start to understand the actual lesson. Chasing a slightly bigger paycheck your whole life doesn't make you rich. It just makes you a slightly better paid employee.
Okay, that's the part where I need you to slow down for a second because you just used the word pension. Can you actually explain that one?
Oh yeah, good catch. A pension is basically money a company or the government pays you regularly after you retire because you worked there for a long time. So it's like you work for 30, 40 years, and then afterward, instead of a salary, you get smaller regular payments to live on.
Got it. So it's kind of a reward for staying loyal to one job for decades.
Pretty much, yeah. And Rich Dad's whole point is don't build your entire life around waiting for that reward. Build something that works for you while you're still young enough to enjoy it.
Okay, and is that different from a nest egg? I've heard that word too.
Good connection, actually. A nest egg is money you save up over time for the future, like an emergency fund or retirement savings. A pension comes automatically from your employer, but a nest egg is something you build yourself on purpose.
So Rich Dad's whole philosophy is basically build your own nest egg. Don't just wait for a pension.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. And that's basically why so many people just keep chasing a slightly bigger paycheck their whole life and never actually get anywhere. There's actually a phrase for that, the rat race. It means that endless cycle of working just to pay bills, then working more with no real progress.
That's a depressingly accurate way to put it.
Right? And Kiyosaki's whole point is most people spend their entire lives stuck in the rat race without even realizing there's a way out.
Okay, so if it's not about the paycheck, what is it about? Like, what's the actual secret?
This is lesson 2, and honestly, it might be the most important idea in the whole book, the difference between an asset and a liability.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure, an asset is anything that puts money into your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Sounds simple, right?
Sounds almost too simple.
But here's the twist. Most people think their house is an asset. Kiyosaki argues that a house can actually be a liability if it's costing you money every single month. Mortgage, taxes, repairs, and it's not putting anything back into your pocket.
Wait, that's going to make some homeowners very upset.
It made a lot of people upset when the book came out. But his point is, rich people spend their lives buying assets. Poor and middle-class people spend their lives buying liabilities and calling them assets.
So like a fancy car.
Exactly like a fancy car. It looks impressive, but it's draining money out of your pocket every month. Gas, insurance, repairs, and the second you drive it off the lot, it's worth less than you paid.
Okay, so what actually counts as a real asset then?
Things like rental property that brings an income, a business that runs without you standing there every second, stocks, bonds, anything that generates cash flow.
There's another one, cash flow. What exactly does that mean?
Cash flow is just the movement of money in and out of your life or your business. Basically, how much is coming in versus how much is going out, and in which direction it's flowing. Rich people focus their whole lives on building positive cash flow, meaning more money flows in than flows out, automatically, without them trading hours for it.
Okay, so walk me through an actual example, because I think this is the part people get stuck on.
Sure. Say somebody buys a small apartment and rents it out. Every month, the rent check comes in. That's money flowing in. Then out of that, they pay the mortgage, maybe some repairs, maybe a property manager. That's money flowing out. Whatever's left over after all that, that little bit of extra money every single month, that's positive cash flow.
And that keeps happening every month, whether they're actively working that day or not.
Exactly. That's the magic part. It's not a one-time paycheck for one-time work. It just keeps flowing in on its own, month after month, as long as the asset keeps working.
Okay, now I finally get why people are so obsessed with rental properties.
Okay, this is honestly making a little nervous about my own bank account.
Welcome to the club. That's basically everyone's reaction the first time they hear this.
So what's lesson 3 then?
Mind your own business.
I mean, I try to.
No, not like that. It means don't confuse your job title with your actual business. Kiyosaki says a lot of people spend their whole life building someone else's business, meaning they work hard, they climb the ladder, but all that energy goes into making the company richer, not them.
So your job is your profession, but your investments are your actual business.
Exactly. He recommends while you're working your job, keep buying real assets on the side, even small ones, because those are the things that eventually let you stop trading your time for money.
Okay, and then there's the whole thing about taxes and corporations too, right?
Yeah, that's lesson 4. He talks about how corporations get to earn money, spend it, and then pay taxes on whatever's left. But most regular employees earn money, pay taxes immediately, and then spend whatever's left.
Wait, so the order is basically reversed?
Totally reversed. And that's part of why understanding how money legally works, accounting, taxes, systems, gives you a real advantage. It's not about breaking rules. It's about actually knowing the rules well enough to use them.
This is the part where I start Googling, how do corporations work at 2 in the morning?
Very relatable.
All right, give me the next one.
Lesson 5, rich people invent money. Basically, they train themselves to spot opportunities that other people just walk right past.
Can you give me an example?
Actually, yeah, there's a great one in the book. Kiyosaki finds a house for sale for $75,000, way under its actual value because the seller just wants to get rid of it fast. He puts down a small deposit to lock it in, and while the paperwork is being processed, he turns around and advertises that exact same house for $60,000, no down payment needed.
Wait, he sold it for less than he was buying it for?
Right. But remember, he hadn't paid the $75,000 yet. He just had it under contract. So a buyer jumps on the $60,000 deal instantly. The moment the house is legally his, he immediately resells it. And according to the story in the book, walks away with around $40,000 profit.
In how much time?
About 5 hours of actual work.
Okay, that's insane. 5 hours and $40,000? Some people work an entire year and don't see that kind of money.
Right, and that's exactly the point he's making. It's not that the deal itself was magic. It's that most people, if they saw that same house for $75,000, would have just scrolled past it because they didn't have the financial knowledge to recognize it was underpriced in the first place.
So the real skill wasn't the money, it was actually noticing the opportunity.
Exactly. And he calls that financial intelligence. Basically, the ability to look at the exact same situation everyone else is looking at and see something they completely miss. It really is. And his point is, the money didn't come from hard labor. It came from seeing an opportunity that someone else missed and knowing how to move on it fast.
That actually reminds me of a saying, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Oh, I love that one.
My uncle used to say that constantly, actually. He wanted to start his own little repair shop for years, but kept saying maybe next year when things settle down. And things never really settled down. They just kept getting busier. Finally, at almost 50 years old, he just opened a tiny shop above a friend's garage, and now, a few years later, it's actually doing really well.
See, and that's exactly the lesson. He could have spent the rest of his life saying it's too late now, but instead he just planted the tree late and let it grow anyway.
Better late than never, right?
Exactly.
Okay, lesson 6 now. Work to learn. Don't just work to earn.
Meaning?
Meaning, especially early in your career, chase experience and skills more than you chase a slightly bigger paycheck. Kiyosaki talks about a journalist he met who dreamed of becoming a best-selling author, but her books, even though people said they were beautifully written, just weren't selling.
So what did he tell her?
He suggested she take a sales course, and she got kind of offended, actually. She had a master's degree in literature, and she said she'd never lower herself to learn how to sell.
Ooh, that's a bit of an ego moment.
Right. And Kiyosaki's response was basically, I'm a best-selling author, not a best writing author, meaning the actual writing quality wasn't the missing piece. The ability to market and sell it was.
That's such an important distinction. Being good at something and being able to actually get people to notice it are two completely different skills.
Exactly. And that's why he encourages people to work multiple different jobs when they're young, even ones that don't pay amazingly, just to collect a wide range of skills: sales, management, understanding how systems work, working with people.
So instead of specializing super early, spread out first.
Right, because the more specialized you get too early, the more dependent you become on that one narrow role.
Okay, last lesson. Lesson 7. What's stopping people, even smart people, from actually building wealth?
4 things, according to the book: fear, cynicism, laziness, and bad habits.
Let's go through them.
Fear first. Nobody enjoys losing money, and honestly, everyone who's ever invested has lost money at some point. The real difference between wealthy people and everyone else isn't that they never lose, it's how they handle that fear afterward.
So they don't let one loss knock them out of the game completely.
Exactly. Sometimes that means using another expression: to cut your losses. It means stopping something before it gets even worse, even if it means accepting a small loss now.
So it's the opposite of fear freezing you completely.
Exactly. It's a healthy kind of fear, the kind that helps you make a smart decision instead of panicking. Most people play not to lose instead of playing to win, and that's a totally different mindset. Then there's cynicism, basically self-doubt or listening too much to other people's doubts.
Oh, I actually know this feeling really well. I almost signed up for an online course last year, and right before I click buy, a friend goes, I heard those things are usually a waste of money, and I just didn't do it.
And do you regret it?
Honestly, a little, yeah. I think about it sometimes.
See, that's exactly what the book warns about. There's actually a great line: cynics criticize, winners analyze. Winners keep their eyes open for opportunities that everyone else just dismisses.
That's a good one. I need to remember that.
There's actually another story in the book about a friend of Kiyosaki's who was about to buy an investment property at a really great price, and he backed out at literally the last minute because a neighbor, who wasn't even an investor himself, told him it sounded like a bad deal.
Oh no.
Yeah, and if he'd actually gone through with it, the value of that property would have doubled. But he let one random comment from someone who didn't even know what he was talking about completely change his decision.
That's kind of painful to hear, honestly.
It is, but it's so common. We let doubt, whether it's our own or somebody else's, quietly talk us out of things constantly, and we don't even always notice it's happening. Then there's laziness, and this part is actually interesting because Kiyosaki's cure for laziness is honestly kind of funny. He says a little bit of greed.
Wait, greed? Isn't that supposed to be a bad thing?
In small doses, he argues it's actually motivating. Instead of telling yourself, I can't afford that, train yourself to ask, how can I afford that? It's a tiny mental shift, but it forces your brain to actually search for solutions instead of just shutting the door.
Okay, and the last one, bad habits.
Right. So his poor dad always paid everyone else first: bills, other people, obligations, and himself last, which meant there was rarely anything actually left over for himself.
That sounds painfully relatable, honestly.
Right? But Rich Dad did the complete opposite. He paid himself first, even when money was tight, which meant he had to get a little creative and find other ways to cover his other bills. That pressure actually pushed him to keep growing his income instead of settling.
Okay, that's honestly a scary way to live, but I kinda get the logic.
It's definitely not for everyone, but the core idea, build the habit of paying your future self before you pay everyone else, that part really does stick with people.
This whole conversation is making me want to sit down and actually make a list of what's an asset and what's a liability in my own life.
Honestly, do it. Might be a little uncomfortable, but that discomfort is usually where the actual learning happens.
I think what surprises me most is how much of this book isn't really about spreadsheets or numbers at all. It's mostly about mindset and habits and which questions you're willing to actually sit with.
Totally agree. Kiyosaki even says at one point that the difference between rich and poor usually isn't how much money someone was born into, it's just which habits they built early and stuck with.
Which honestly makes it feel a lot less overwhelming. It's not some secret only a few lucky people know.
Right. It's just a set of small, repeatable choices done consistently for a really long time.
You know, that reminds me. Earlier, when Robert wanted to quit that 10-cent job, he was basically ready to just bite the bullet and walk away completely.
Oh, nice use of that one. For anyone who hasn't heard it, to bite the bullet means to force yourself to do something difficult or unpleasant that you've been avoiding because it just has to be done.
Exactly. And instead, he chose to stick around and actually hear Rich Dad out, even though every part of him wanted to quit.
You know, there's another expression that fits perfectly here too. To make ends meet.
Oh, I actually hear that one a lot.
Yeah, it basically means having just enough money to cover your basic expenses. Nothing extra, nothing left over. Like after rent and groceries, we're barely making ends meet this month.
Right, so it's not about being broke exactly. It's more like surviving financially, but with zero breathing room.
Exactly. And that's kind of the whole trap Kiyosaki's describing. A lot of people spend their entire lives just making ends meet, working harder and harder, but never actually building anything that grows on its own.
Okay, and speaking of growing on its own, you used another word earlier that I want to circle back to. Leverage. What does that actually mean in this context?
Good catch. Leverage basically means using something small, like a bit of borrowed money or someone else's time or a system you built once, to create a much bigger result than you could get on your own. Like instead of physically working more hours yourself, you use other tools or other people's effort to multiply what you're able to produce.
So it's kind of like using a lever to lift something way heavier than your own strength should allow.
That's literally where the word comes from, actually. Same idea, just applied to money and time instead of physical objects.
Okay, that one's sticking with me.
There's one more word I want to slide in here, actually. Frugal.
Ooh, I like that word. It sounds kind of old-fashioned.
It kind of is, but it's still used a lot. Being frugal means you're careful and thoughtful about spending money. Not cheap in a negative way, just intentional, avoiding waste.
So like, Rich Dad probably would have described himself as frugal, not cheap.
Exactly. There's a difference. Cheap usually has a slightly negative feeling to it, like you're sacrificing quality just to save a few cents. Frugal is more like you spend on what actually matters and you cut back on what doesn't.
Okay, I'm definitely stealing that word for my next conversation about my grocery bill.
Please do. Use it proudly.
Okay, so if somebody's listening right now and they're thinking, all right, that's a lot of lessons. Where do I even start? What would you actually tell them?
Honestly, I think it starts really small. Just start noticing, is this thing I'm buying an asset or is it a liability? You don't need to flip your whole life upside down overnight.
Right. It's less about one dramatic decision and more about a bunch of small decisions repeated over and over.
Exactly. And that's honestly why the book still resonates with so many people even decades later. It's not really a get-rich-quick formula. It's a complete shift in how you look at every dollar that passes through your hands. That's exactly why Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki became such a popular book all around the world.
I have to admit, at the start of this episode, I was ready to spend my $10 on coffee.
And now?
Now, I'm at least going to think about it for like 10 extra seconds before I do.
Progress. I'll take it.
All right, so that's Rich Dad, Poor Dad wrapped up for you. The story, the 7 big lessons, and honestly, a pretty solid stack of new expressions along the way.
We covered assets versus liabilities, cash flow, leverage, pension, nest egg, the rat race, and frugal, plus bite the bullet, make ends meet, and cut your losses, and that little proverb about planting trees.
If any of that stuck with you, that's genuinely the whole goal here. Not memorizing a list, just letting it settle in naturally through a real conversation. Actually, before you go, try making your own sentence with one of today's expressions. Maybe something about your own nest egg or a time you had to bite the bullet.
And if you want more of these, you know where to find us.
We'll catch you in the next one.
Take care, and hey, maybe go check what's actually in your wallet right now. Asset or liability?
Perfect way to end it. See you next time, everyone.